Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. I hope you're doing well. Well, recently, Stacey Abrams has been talking about the 10 steps of becoming authoritarian. Well, we know something was up when Donald Trump took office because one of the things that many of you may remember him saying is in another 4 years, you won't even have to worry about an election. So he was indicating that he had no intentions on leaving office at the end of 4 years. He will continue on as president. It raised a lot of eyebrows, and he said it multiple times. He didn't just say this once and that was it. Well, she said there's 10 steps to this whole process, and we're on step number 9. And the Republicans are working to put this whole thing in place where at the end of Donald Trump's term, he won't have to leave. He will literally be the president indefinitely. Now, I know they are definitely up to something because, like I said, this has come up multiple times, especially directly out of the mouth of Donald Trump. So I'm not crazy about Stacey Abrams at all, but in some of the points she made on this, she was pretty much on point. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Okay. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
For laying out 10 steps to autocracy. Run us through those steps so we all know.
Okay, so this happens in every nation that has become an autocracy, having been a democracy. So whether we're talking about Brazil with Bolsonaro, or India, or Putin and Russia, the Philippines with Duterte. So start with winning an election.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the last one you're going to get to have for real. Number 2, you have an expansion of executive power. The president decides he wants more than he's supposed to have. Number 3, you start to make the Congress complicit. So you weaken them and you neutralize or neuter the judiciary. Like, I don't know, the Supreme Court giving you unfettered power and saying we don't have the ability to stop things. Then you move on to firing all the people who know how to make government work. So you gut the civil service. And you do that because you want to break democracy so people forget the stuff that used to get done. So you can't get your Social Security check. So the CDC doesn't know what diseases are anymore. Then you put in place these loyalists, people who are only responsive to you. You put them in charge of the FBI so they go after your enemies. You put them in charge of the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, so they can signal to their friends and tell them all about the evil plans that you have. Then you make certain that you break how we communicate. So you criticize the media and you create your own echo chamber of propaganda. You call it truth, even though you know you're lying. Then you go to the next step, and I call that step 7. So at step 7, you have to blame someone. You have to blame people for the broken government, for the broken promises. So you go after DEI. You go after the vulnerable, the dispossessed. You go after any community that doesn't look like what you think power should be. While you're doing that, you make certain that you, in step 8, you eliminate anybody who could help them. So you sue law firms that do pro bono cases. You go after philanthropies and accuse them of giving money to the wrong people. You go after colleges and universities that can teach people possibly what else they should know. You get to step 9 and you start to encourage and incentivize private violence. You send the US Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay. Wow. Well, while you had the ear of the people right now and on their television sets, what is it that they can do to help avoid this and make a change in this?
Thank you. So I want to give credit to Kim Sheppel, who is a professor at Princeton. She came up with a framework. I've adapted it and potentially editorialized it more than she did. But I also want to give credit to the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, not the lesser successor, but the real guy. We can fight back. We can remember that we do have power. They don't want dissent, so protest. They want us to forget that before we had power, we had each other. So when they break democracy, when they break the social security system, when they slash SNAP benefits and Medicaid, make sure you're checking on your neighbors. Make sure we're using mutual aid, but also tell the truth. Do not let the propaganda win. Too often they tell a lie. They will tell a lie so often it sounds like the truth. We say the truth one time, and when people don't applaud, we stop talking. We've got to keep telling the truth, not only to push back against them, but to remind us that we are entitled to the truth. We have to believe that freedom of assembly means it's more than just going to protest. It's the ability to be friends with people who aren't like you. And we have to stop believing that we are in this alone. The most effective thing they do is isolate us. They convince us that you and I don't have any common cause, and we certainly don't have common cause with someone who has a different history than we do. When we hold to our truth, when we actually believe in ourselves and our people, when we believe in democracy as something that must deliver, that's when we start to fight back. And that's when they lose, because they win when we are too numb or too afraid to act.
All right. American autocracy. Why now? What is it that triggered this piece now?
Because we are in the midst of an authoritarian regime. We keep talking about it as though it's something that's looming, and it's critical that we understand it's already happening. But if we want to reclaim our country, we have to understand the moment we're in, and we've got to start fighting back immediately.
Who's the we?
The we is the American people. Anyone who actually believes that democracy should be the organizing principle for how we live together in this country. Autocracy, authoritarianism is an alternative. Under the proposed regime of this current administration and its supporters in the Republican Party, we have an authoritarian regime where we've seen an expansion of executive power, a sublimation of competing powers, both Congress and the courts. But we've also seen attacks on the media, attacks on communities. We've seen the kidnappings of people in our country, including citizens. But we're also watching the military occupation of our cities. That's what happens in authoritarian regimes. And that is being led by the Republican Party, spearheaded and helmed by Donald Trump.
The reason I ask who the we is one of the points that you make in your piece is that historically, governments that have taken on an authoritarian cast or have become, true authoritarians are often voted in.
Absolutely.
And it has to be said, the Republicans in Congress were voted in. The president was voted in. We could dispute what the margins are, but that is the truth of it. So does that suggest that there is a critical mass of people who agree with what he's doing and with what the Republicans in Congress are supporting?
Not at all. So one of the features of modern day authoritarianism, we are used to thinking about autocrats rising, dictators rising through coups d'etats and through military overthrows. But the modern version is actually winning elections. Erdogan in Turkey, Modi in India, Putin in Russia. We've forgotten that he was elected to these, they've been elected into these positions, and they maintain elections in those nation states. Bolsonaro, Maduro has elections. Venezuela has elections, but there's no question that it's an authoritarian regime. And it is a naivete that we hold in America that it's only authoritarianism if we didn't vote those people into office. The question isn't what did we vote them for, is what are they doing with the power they have now? And the reason this is so important is that we are not protected from authoritarianism because we have democracy. We ushered in authoritarianism using democracy, and now it is our responsibility to protect democracy from those who would take it from us. Not be, you send the National Guard in, you kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Okay. Wow. Well,
While you have the ear of the people right now,
did y'all hear what Stacey Abrams said? If you didn't, you need to listen to this and listen to every single fucking word that this woman has to say.
Autocrats come to power. There's a 10-step plan, and we're at about step 9. So step 1, you have a free and fair election, but it's the last time. Because once that person wins, they don't intend to let anybody else or anyone else take the power that they have amassed for themselves or for their ticket. Second thing they do is that they exceed the realms of executive power. So you see a bunch of executive orders coming out claiming all kinds of powers that a president doesn't hold. Number 3, they then take the competing versions of power and try to either make them complicit or neuter them. So you have a Congress that basically has forgotten they got a job. And then you have the judiciary that's either complicit or neutered. And it's neutered because if the president, if the executive refuses to follow the rules, then you've neutralized the judiciary because the judiciary doesn't actually have enforcement power. Number 4, you go after the media. With the media, you make sure that you demonize and criticize the legitimate media so that nobody trusts it. And then you create an echo chamber so that the only truth that people hear is the truth you want them to hear, even if it's not truth. Even if you put truth in the name, it's not true. Then you start to gut government. You fire all the people who know how to do stuff. You break democracy by making people think they don't need it. And the best way to do that is to make sure that the things that they've learned to rely on are no longer available. Because then you become the only way they get what they want. So you fire the CDC so that vaccine rates drop and the disease rises. You fire FEMA so that when there's a natural disaster, the only way you get what you need is by begging for it. So you gut the civil service so that no one can actually do the work that democracy is supposed to protect us for. At the same time, you hire a bunch of people that you call loyalists and you put them in place so that they don't hire anybody who doesn't agree with you, but you also put them in positions of power. So then your next step is that you go after the people who do the good work. So you sue law firms, you sue philanthropies. And then step 7, you got to have someone to blame. They blamed everybody. They blamed women. They blamed children. They blamed people of color. They blamed immigrants. They are doing all of that because they know at step 7, if you can push that forward, then we're fighting each other and fighting for survival instead of fighting for our country. And then you start to incentivize private violence. That's step 9. Maybe you send the National Guard and Marines and you militarize kidnapping people off of the streets, throwing them into detention camps, and then arresting people who dare to challenge you, calling any question obstruction of justice. Civic participation, the First Amendment, is the 9th category because if you can militarize your response, you also convince people it's not worth the possible pain of calling out the problem. And once you've gotten to step 9, step 10 is easy. You make sure no one ever votes again because now you've got them captive, now you've got them scared, now you've got them poor, and now you've got the power. That's autocracy in 10 steps.
All she did was speak our fucking reality right now. That's exactly what has happened since January of 2025. Exactly. Step by step. Literally step by fucking step. And y'all are going to try to sit here and act like y'all don't see what the fuck is happening? Open your fucking eyes. Why y'all think Dookie Booty said you'll never have to vote again? Why do y'all think he said you'll never have to vote again? Use your fucking noggin.
Well, I think what resonated about the conversation that I had is that the first step is making sure people can connect the dots. We often talk in these broad brushstrokes and these, polemical terms and these $30 words: autocracy, authoritarianism, oligarchs. Now let's make it real. So that's the first job. Take it out of the ether and bring it down to the lived experience. Your kid's not going to get free lunch at school because these people who were supposed to protect your lunch said that we'd rather give private jets to billionaires. And I'm not being hypothetical. You can write off the cost of a jet, but you have to pay $3,000 for an ambulance. Like, we got to talk about it in real terms. Number 2, though, we have to start delivering. Democracy has to deliver if we want people to protect it. Autocracy wins when people stop believing that democracy is worth it.
Well, I hope this means the political structure is finally going to collapse. I really do. I think that America is really in a very interesting place now politically. And we know this place is not going to rise. We already know we're in the final days. but what they're doing, hopefully it will accelerate things so we can be out of this hellhole once and for all. These folks have no ability of making anything better, and Donald Trump certainly don't have it. If he can get 34 convictions thrown on him, if he can't even help himself, what is he going to do for a whole nation? So I'm hoping everything they're doing will accelerate it and we can finally be done with this place once and for all. Save it? Hell no. Now, that part I don't agree with. There's nothing for us to save. What are you saving? And isn't that counterproductive if you got the same demons in charge? Isn't it counterproductive to save it? I ain't interested in saving this place, but I want it gone. So, anyway, y'all, I just wanted y'all to hear what she is saying because this stuff is going viral. So, you just have an idea of what is going on out here politically. That's all. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. And I might have one more topic. If I do, it won't be until later on, maybe like around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So, y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Shalom, family.